Okay. Good evening, everybody. We're back into open session after being enclosed for a little bit. We're going to start with the roll call. Kinsey?
McCoy,
Here.
Gerlach,
Here.
Here.
Welch,
Here.
Becker,
Here.
Lyerly.
Here.
Okay, everyone's present and accounted for. We're also joined at the table by two students from our Intercity Student Council. Would you please introduce yourselves?
My name is Kia Yang. I'm a ninth grader from West, and I'm a part of the ICSC.
Hi, I'm Viva Winkler. I'm a senior at Southwest and I'm the president of Intercity Student Council.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Feel free to jump in with any questions you have, okay? All right, next we're going to, would you all please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Would someone like to read the mission statement? Thank you.
We educate all students to be college, career, and community ready, inspired to succeed in our diverse world.
Thank you, Nancy. Next is our land acknowledgement. We, the members of the Green Bay Area Public School District, recognize and honor the original inhabitants of Northeast Wisconsin. Our district lives, works, and learns upon the ancestral homelands of the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations and the current homeland of the Oneida Nation. We acknowledge the 12 diverse and vibrant Wisconsin First Nations who have persevered here since before recorded time and continue to be integral parts of our community. We uphold our responsibility to repair relationships, initiate partnerships, and stand with all First Nation communities. Okay, next, under public forum, we have our Intercity Student Council report. Take it away, guys.
All right, so over at Preble, their dance team went to Disneyland, which is very exciting, a little trip to see Mickey. Their academic decathlon competed at state and they will be moving on to nationals. They're looking forward to picking their new officers for student council next year. And their band trip next year will be going to New Orleans. Very exciting. Over at East, their music department field trip this year is going to New Orleans and they're leaving on Thursday. Their academic decathlon also competed at state. Their students did great. They had their last show choir competition and their track and girls soccer has officially started. Over at West, spring sports have started. In track, there was a new record set for the 10-foot pole vault. Their girls soccer starts today. Last week, students completed ACTs, and this week, I believe, tomorrow are the pre-ACTs. And there are preparations for homecoming next year because they're having it in September, which is pretty early.
Okay.
Over at JDAL, a new member from the school had joined student council, and now a member of Intercity Student Council. Fire tickets, which are the school tokens that are given to students who achieved kindness or did things over the top of for the school. Southwest, King of Troy, they had a King of Troy event, international and conferences for sports, and they have spring break next week.
All right, does that complete your report? Thank you, guys. All right, next we have our public forum, and we're going to have people come up in the order that we received them. So first is Robert Arguelles, is that right?
Yeah, pretty close.
Arguelles. Just state your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is Robert Arguelles, and I live at 1614 Halsey Street. I gave each member of the copy of the email correspondence. I wasn't sure where it quite ended up after the last meeting regarding my son and his acceleration experience. But the one big thing I kind of want to point out about this email that's quite alarming for me is that multiple levels of leadership already had a preconceived notion that they were going to deny my son 2 months before they even gave him an end of the year test. In this email, you'll see that they pointed out we were trying to break the news on how to tell him no before they had even collected all the information. And I think that's pretty unacceptable that my son wasn't given a fair shot. In the policy, it says they're supposed to be given an end of the year exam, and he wasn't given that until 2 months later after appealing it up multiple levels, all the way up to the assistant and superintendent at the time. Another thing I wanted to point out is if you go to the student portal and you go on your student's website, if you click under the assessments, there's no data on there. And for me, with my son and our kids at home, we use that information to kind of cater their learning, areas they might be struggling, areas they could improve. And we have no access to star assessments. We have no access to other results. And that could just be added to the students portal through some simple coding. And I was really disappointed because every time I went to a learning support meeting or anything like that, I wasn't given the information to prepare to fight for my child. Actually, a lot of times I was met with crickets, and one time I was actually sent the information for an entire classroom versus my own child. I think that's unacceptable, and that's a major breach of confidentiality that could have easily been avoided. Along with that, on the assessment program, parents should have access to that information. I believe it's a legal right. And I think just by adding it to the parent portal would be something that would easily eliminate a lot of those struggles that I experienced, and I could have been more prepared for those meetings. And then if you look into the next code 342.3, see programs for gifted and talented students, and right there it's got some legal references. But the big thing that I wanted to highlight in red for you guys was that the district shall provide opportunities for parent participation in the planning of a student's proposed program. My son was denied acceleration. And when you're denied acceleration, you're supposed to be presented with a personal learning plan according to the policy for acceleration. I was never given a chance to play a part in that. I was rather given a piece of paper a month afterwards. And now a month after that, nothing has even taken place. I was not given logins to things that I was promised from the principal. My son has not been offered any of those things that they proposed in the personal learning plan at the beginning of February. I think that's really unacceptable. And I think we should be holding all levels of staff accountable for follow-up. I shouldn't have to follow up after every single meeting to get the data that they promise. This has gone through the principal, the assistant superintendent, and even people above them. And I just think that's unacceptable for me not even to be able to really play a part in the program that he's being taught. And he goes to Leonardo da Vinci. He's testing in the 99th percentile. And actually, this week he just started long division and double digit multiplication as a kindergartner. He also did finish the 2-minute division Dragon Dash, and he's the first kindergartner in the history of Leonardo da Vinci to do that. So for my son to be told that he wasn't good enough without being given a fair shot was just flat out unacceptable. And I do want to say thank you to everybody on the board. I saw that you guys added the acceleration onto the docket for today. And with that, I wanted to make sure that I kind of reiterated a couple of the things that I think are really important. So I did give you guys each a copy, and I did highlight kind of the things I wanted to touch on. But uh, I think that end of the year exam, if you see it highlighted under A, the principal should be able to schedule one within 2 weeks. I don't think that's a tall ask. If a parent asks for acceleration, principal should be able to schedule one within 2 weeks. I think that's a more than reasonable time, and it also helps the parent. Um, at these meetings that I've had, information hasn't been readily available to reference afterwards. And I think if you were to just have some kind of minutes or something recorded for those acceleration meetings, it would eliminate a lot of that he said, she said, and back and forth. The school district actually lost one of my son's assessments. And I think that was kind of unacceptable. Along with that, I had uh, so the learning plan, my son took the test in December 17th. He wasn't given a personal learning plan, a PLP, until middle of end of February. That's almost 3 months. And I think that's really unacceptable. I think there should be a timeline on it. And I think 2 weeks is an acceptable timeline to generate a personal learning plan. I don't think it's too difficult. When she presented the sheet, it was 5 things. Lastly, though, one other thing I really want to touch on was you guys require incoming staff to have an 80% when they take their typing test or different tests to become part of the school district. It used to be a 90% in the late 90s and early 2000s, and then it changed to percent. I think it's completely acceptable to hold your students to that same standard. You guys currently have a 90% necessary. I think an 80% is reasonable for the end of the year test. Aside from that, I didn't have anything else. But again, I do really want to say thank you for you guys getting it on the next dockets meeting. That really does mean a lot. And just adding those assessments to the portal can help parents.
Thank you very much. Okay, next is Patrick Doherty. State your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes.
Pardon me?
State your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes.
Patrick Doherty, 1680 Lake Largo, Green Bay. I was born here, raised here, went through Lincoln School, couple of years of Annunciation, Franklin, when it was attached to West. Later years worked for the school, for the maintenance department, and the schools ran for the school board as a joke, and I won. So I think I know the system. And the reason, and I didn't run the second term, and the reason I didn't run the second term is what I found out running the first term. So I'm here because not the gift and talent, but the rest of the kids. And from what and I have friends that are in the system, and from what I hear from them and what I hear on TV and on the streets, school behavior, there's no respect in the schools today. In my day, you had a respect. That's just the way it was. Board members, when I got elected to the board, there was an attorney that told me the people elected you to the board to represent the people, not the administration. That's the first thing that he told me. You know, it's hard because of the gifted and talented kids. It always seemed to me that programs were pushed towards them, but not the rest of the kids. And maybe that's the reason that there is a problem. I don't know, as far as the way kids act. But the past referendums that there was for some of the schools that I believe you're going to close. I'd like to know where that, with the schools that are closing, where the money is from the past referendums. All right. The qualifications. When I worked, and Andrew knows this because he was on the board with me, the teachers need qualifications. The support staff need qualifications. And I said at this board table that the administrators should have the qualifications called for in all their job descriptions. I would like to have some certified company come in and find out if that's true. Because of the fact that, you know, when you talk about the teachers and you talk about the teachers having control and when they say that, you know, a teacher needs to work harder, you know, I don't know if a teacher needs to work harder simply because of the fact of they have no backing. That's Scott Walker's doing because of the fact they took out the union and they have nobody to represent them. So when it comes to not only wages and benefits, it comes to the working place. So it's kind of hard for me that worked in this place, sat at that board, listened to people that came in, and then sit back at 85 years old and listen to the people that are in the system teaching today. it's hard for me to understand how it was when I went to the system and the way it is today. The board members, when I was a board member, Dr. Joint and I had many conversations. And the conversation involved around me going into the school and talking to the teachers and the support staff. And he always said, go see the principal. And I said, no, I'm not seeing the principal, because if I see the principal, I'm not gonna find out what's going on, because they know that he's going downtown. So somehow I got to find out a whole lot of things. So I guess my request to the board is that somehow you get to the teachers, get to the support staff, and talk without the principal, even if it's on the street. But we find out what exactly is going in those schools. Because I'll tell you what, I just got back from Florida, and at St. Anne's Church, I went to church there, and there's a priest there that has full control. And he's got full control of that school, and all he has is a tone. He says it, and the kids behave, the parents take care of business. Yes, they pay to go to that Catholic school, but the taxpayers go for the kids to go here. I'm looking for the kid that not the gifted and talented, the rest of them. I said that when Dan Nearad was assistant, when he was the head of education, and I'll say it again. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we gotta find out how we can get the young person in the schools that doesn't have a chance, because it's like I said to Dr. Joy. I sit next to Andrew Becker. Andrew Becker was a top student. And if I'm sitting next to him and I got a test, what chance do I have? He's up there. He's had the opportunities, but he took advantage. Maybe I didn't take advantage. So that's what I'm saying, and I hope somehow that we can get the problem solved, because the Green Bay schools does not have a good reputation, and I don't like it because I grew up here. So I hope somehow we can solve this thing and get it back on track. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Heather Swakowski. I hope I said that right. Okay.
Hello. Our names are Ryan and Heather Swakowski. We live at 1515 Careful Drive right here in Green Bay. We are here today to share our experience and voice our concerns with how the Green Bay Public School District addresses physical assaults, bullying, and threats. We had hoped to have handled this situation without having to come here today, but we hope all of you can ensure proper resolution in this. Back on September 8th, 2023, our daughters, were physically assaulted on the school bus. We immediately reached out to the principal to discuss this matter to see what could be done to ensure our children's safety going forward. We were assured that this was addressed and it would not happen again. Our daughters and other students were physically assaulted, threatened, and bullied 5 more times within the same month. Additionally, each situation progressed in its harm. The final incident was when one of our daughters was physically assaulted by being hit over 20 times. Due to the district's inability to keep our children safe, we as parents made the decision to remove our children from the school bus. As of September 29th, 2023, our children are still not riding the bus, as the district has yet to repair the issue to ensure that our children would be safe on the bus. We want to share that as parents and as humans ourselves, we understand that we will make mistakes in life. We will cause harm to others, even when that is not our intention. However, it doesn't change the fact that this mistake happened. If I caused a car accident and the other person was severely hurt, even to the extreme measure of death. As much as it would not have been my intention, my actions still cause harm, and I would still be responsible for that harm. To that point, it is important that we as humans learn and know how to repair the things that we do that cause harms to others, whether it was intentional or not. We as adults, parents, teachers, and other school leaders ought to be the examples for children in what this looks like. We ought to be able to help lead children in being able to truly repair the wrongdoings to the point where all parties involved are grateful that the situation happened.
So please note that I'm going to provide a very high-level overview of our experience. I have every conversation documented, and I'm willing to share that with the board. So going back to our experience, we began working with the principal on this matter on September 11th, 2023, and we were in constant communication throughout every incident that took place. Throughout our interactions, we were not provided with answers, or the answers that we received were extremely vague to the questions that we were asking. Due to that and the severity of the incidents that happened, we actually reached out to the school board via email and were directed to the superintendent, and from there, the director of elementary. Our exchanges with the director went the same way, vague or no answers to the questions being asked. With that, the director connected us to the associate superintendent, who did the same thing and directed us back to the principal without repairing any of the gaps that had been identified throughout this entire situation. We connected with the superintendent at that time and provided all of the details regarding the situation. All of our questions were left unanswered, and it was clear that the correspondences were not reviewed prior to the meeting with us to discuss the matter. At this time, our faith in the Green Bay Public School District is at an all-time low. We then met in person with the director and the principal. The associate superintendent and superintendent were scheduled to be there and unable to attend due to the recent changes, and the same pattern occurred. We were still met with no or vague answers to the questions that we asked. Ultimately, we are looking for somebody to take responsibility for the abuse that has occurred. Instead, we're being met with leaders who are dodging this responsibility. In fact, the last response we received from the associate superintendent was being directed back to the principal yet again without any repair happening, as well as a statement that they will no longer provide responses to our questions regarding this. How is it that you can expect students to answer any questions if leaders of the Green Bay School District do not answer questions, provide vague answers to questions, or ultimately refuse to answer questions? To the Green Bay Public School District, how many more children need to experience harm, physically, mentally, and emotionally, before the school district admits that they need help in this area? Help with how to equip the leaders and children in these moments. How the board handles this situation will prove their stance and how the Green Bay Public School District addresses bullying, threats, and physical assaults. We look forward to hearing your plan for ensuring that this doesn't happen going forward, being that children are your greatest responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our last person is Jenny Besky. Okay. Come on up. Please state your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
My name is Jenny Rubeski, and I live at 1143 Elmore Street. I'm the parent of a 7th grader, as well as a board member of Green Bay Youth Lacrosse. My family moved here from Washington State in 2022, and my son started playing lacrosse in kindergarten back in Washington. As you probably are aware, lacrosse is now a recognized WIAA sport as of this year. The Green Bay Public Schools do not currently have lacrosse teams, although Southwest had a high school club team in the past. There is an opportunity for the Green Bay Public Schools to enter into a co-op for next year so that interested players can play for Notre Dame, where there is an existing team. There was an opportunity for this year. However, the district athletic director advised that the individual athletic directors stated there was no interest. It is unknown how that was determined, and as far as we are aware, there was no information provided to the students or a survey of any sort. Students cannot express interest in an opportunity they don't know exists. Currently, girls in the Green Bay School District are able to co-op with Notre Dame lacrosse. Boys at Southwest are able to co-op with Oneida. Boys at any other high school other than Southwest are not eligible to play at the high school level in Green Bay. At least one student from Preble was interested in playing this year and was denied because there is no co-op in place, according to the Notre Dame athletic director. Without a co-op agreement in place, an existing team would be disqualified and forfeit all games for having an ineligible player on the roster. There is an existing Green Bay youth lacrosse program for players ages 8 to 14, which has a new board of directors and is growing. There were recently 2 local free tri-lacrosse opportunities, and the information was provided to all elementary and intermediate schools. There is an opportunity to grow this sport. Many of the surrounding communities are forming high school teams or entering into co-ops. High school players from Bayport, Notre Dame, and De Pere are all planning to host additional local free youth clinics. Finally, the athletic director advised that the cost per student to co-op is approximately $300. There is no cost other than the per student fee. He cited district financial issues. However, if the opportunity is available to all high school girls and also all Southwest boys, it should be available to all students. We would like the school board to be aware that there is a growing interest and opportunity for students to play lacrosse, but it is being met with reluctance from athletic directors. Again, there is no cost to enter into a co-op. It is minimal per player cost. Many kids may be interested in playing if they knew there was an opportunity. It also provides a program outside of existing high school sports for physical activity and structure. A decision and agreement to co-op will need to be made by May 2024 for next year. We will follow up directly with the high school athletic directors as well as the district athletic director, but again, want to go on record and let the board be aware that this opportunity exists for all Green Bay students, should the district choose to accept it.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on in our agenda. Our next item is the legislative update, and that would be Lynn Gerlach.
Okay, so just wanted to mention that the Budget Committee has rejected DPI's literacy curriculum recommendations. I have no idea what that's about. Somebody told me that it doesn't mean anything, but I just thought it was interesting. Also, we have, for the first time, I have seen a DPI clearinghouse rule. I don't know what that is, but I thought it was interesting because they are proposing to relax the rules around school start dates. And you might remember that we just recently made our own request to start school this coming fall at a later date. I mean, at an earlier date so that we can close during the NFL draft, and it was approved. And I just would like to suggest that maybe that gave them the idea that they ought to relax the rules. I don't know, but I'm going to take some credit for it. And WASB supports that. It's just a proposal. Then I want to mention the Assembly Bill 1144. Again, I have no idea if this would ever pass, but this is a proposal to, you know, we get the per pupil adjustment from last year for each pupil. Plus, we now get $320 per pupil additional in the next school year. This bill proposes that it also be adjusted for an increase in the consumer price index. And I asked Angie what that would mean for us, and she said, if it were to happen this year, for example, we would get about $250,000 more. But she doesn't have any reason to believe this is ever going to happen. And then I just want to mention 2 bills that were passed. Assembly Bill 232, adding information on Hmong Americans and Asian Americans to the required instructional program, was passed by a voice vote on March 11th. And Assembly Bill 377, in case you haven't heard it on the news, was passed. This designates, this says that we must designate every sport and team for males or for females or for males and females. And their sex will be determined by what the doctor wrote on their birth certificate, no changing. And that males who were designated male on their birth certificate may not play on a team that is designated female. And if we make any changes to our designation, we must notify pupils and parents. Originally, before this was voted on and I was gathering information, I found that there were 20 organizations that opposed it. And I'm not going to read them all to you, but I think it's worth noting that this was opposed by the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association, by WEAC, by WASB, by the ACLU. It was opposed by the Wisconsin Association of School Nurses. It was opposed by the Wisconsin Association of School Psychologists and School Social Workers, and it passed on March 12th. The governor intends to veto it. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Brian.
I was at a training this weekend where they talked about Assembly Bill 232 and how it passed, and I believe it was signed in now, I'm not sure. But the excitement with that, regarding the information for Hmong Americans and Asian American, the history part, the excitement with the people participating in it was amazing, and it's great to see this going through. I know it was mentioned at our last board meeting as well, but it's a good bill, so it's pretty exciting.
I think it's been a long time coming. Any other questions for Lynn? Any other discussion? Okay, thank you, Lynn. All right, we're going to go on to our consent agenda. And would someone like to read the motion, please?
I move that the consent agenda as presented be approved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. Okay, that goes, now we're on to our action items. I just want to warn everybody in the room tonight that we are going to be taking a lot of votes on issues that we discussed at our meeting last week. We might have further discussion tonight. I'm not sure. But and there might be some consolidation as well. But there's many, many, many items on our agenda tonight to vote on. So just bear with us as we make our way through them. The first item is the interim superintendent contract. Would you like to go ahead and read
Sure.
the motion, please?
I move that the board issue an interim superintendent contract to Vicky Byer for the term of March 4th, 2024 to June 30th, 2025, unless terminated sooner pursuant to the provisions contained in the contract for the amount of $225,000 as presented be approved.
Okay. Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. I feel like I should say a few words, but I don't know that. Yeah. This this makes it official in a way that it wasn't before. And we certainly welcome Vicky back into this position as we make our way through the next with regard to searching for a new superintendent. So, but thank you, Vicky. All right. The next is item is high school math resource adoption. Would someone like to read that motion, please?
I move that the course essential documents and resources for high school math as presented be approved.
Second.
Okay. Questions? Go ahead.
It's not exactly a question. I'm just going to tell you why I'm voting no. I'm voting no because I feel that for the longest time now, teachers haven't truly been able to participate in the selection of materials. I'm not going to go into details about that, but I just want you to know that the teachers are the ones that are using these materials, and they should have a lot to say about it. And that's been one of the things I've tried to get through the last 3 years. And I know David Johns is aware of it, and he is going to be looking to make sure that teacher voice is heard in these materials. Thank you.
Anybody else? Andrew.
I've been part of the same conversation. And of course, part of this conversation was last week about work teams instead of curriculum committees. So I guess I would be interested in knowing how much teacher voice is behind what we're seeing here today, and is there, I guess I assume if I'm gonna be doing a curriculum approval, one of two things I would assume that there was either very strong, overwhelming teacher support behind the scenes, or we're implementing something that there is teacher concern about, and then we've been told why there's teacher concern about it. So I'm just wondering, kind of based on Nancy's comments, I know we did have a presentation about this, but is there any piece of the puzzle I'm missing, or was there, were there limited options brought forward to teachers?
Evening, board. Yeah, last week you had an opportunity to hear from a panel of teachers who obviously were deeply knowledgeable about the process, and curriculum. Team members talked about what happens at the very, very beginning in terms of creating some selection criteria by getting the voices of all teachers. In the time since last Monday, I was interested in learning a little bit more about to what extent was this a representative field test of the materials. I have just a few more details to share, Mr. Becker, related to your question, but I'm happy to answer more if you have them. These materials were used in about 1/3 of our math sections. So when we talk about the number of students that had an experience working with the new materials, and data was shared with you last week about, and again, you never test the strength of a curriculum, particularly just during a field test, but data was shared, and more importantly, anecdotal messages from students and teachers were shared that represent about 1/3 of our student population in high school math classes. There was a panel of all Preble teachers who shared, that caused me to wonder who else used this and where was it field tested. So we did have field testing across all of our middle schools, remembering that we teach Algebra 1 in our middle schools, and all of our high schools. 21 different teachers across all of our schools were engaged in the field test, ranging from the algebra class in middle school all the way through Algebra 2 for pre-calculus in high school. So I just wanted to add that additional perspective. I'm not sure if that came through initially in terms of the breadth of where these materials were used in the field.
Go ahead.
So after you had the Preble teachers there, the person that was really adamant about not being, heard in the two different trials, he reached out to me and he said he would have come if he would have known that, he could have given his opinion at the board. He was never, asked to. So that's part of it. But now I didn't want to get into this, but I think I'm going to, because this is the part that is part of the culture and the climate of our district. And when you have people that believe that teachers don't know enough to be asked about curriculum, and that certain people are going to do that, that is really a blow to teachers. And I'm not saying anybody's name or anything, but I've heard it more than once. I've talked to all the people. And I just want you to know that it can't go on this way. And there's something that always happens in education. It's called the pendulum swings, the pendulum swings. When I was teaching at Eisenhower, I had the choice of having notebooks for my math students, or I could take $250 and get manipulatives. So I chose the $250 worth of manipulatives. The next math curriculum was, we're not doing that. You need to throw out all your manipulatives and we are going to do it this way. And this has been going on too long. And it's before you guys, but the same things happened. And another thing that this man said, why is there not a pre-algebra course for kids who struggle in math? I think it was you, David, that told me that, there's so many kids that have failed it and have to retake it. How ever get left out? I don't understand why that isn't a pathway. And a lot of teachers come to me with that and I say, well, I don't know, but they say, well, we asked for it. So I don't need to say anymore. Just teachers' voices are so important. Go ahead, James.
So there was a two-part question by Andrew, and I just want to make sure that if you have this information, please share it. If 1/3 of the teachers across all math sections had the opportunity to exercise this curriculum, in your estimation, or do you have information that there is a substantial minority kind of perspective on this curriculum, or was what was represented at the table a week ago representative of a significant majority? If I remember correctly, it was, but I just wanted to revisit that because I think it's important when we're going into this size of a expenditure.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting the second part of that question. There would be two areas where I would be interested in learning more about what would constitute a minority report. One would be on process in terms of disagreements or different perspectives on how we should go about adopting curriculum. That's important and valid and something we need to learn more and more about. So each time we go through these cycles, we can do it with more confidence that we're landing on the decision that is going to serve our kids the best. And then the other part of that would be, I was fine with the process, but didn't agree with what was selected, with what came out of the process. Currently, that's what we're focusing on right now, in the sense that what we're hearing from individuals who had professional criticism of materials, and this would be true at any level, and it was part of the K-8 elementary, middle school ELA adoption as well. We're going directly back to the publishers with those concerns because we want to give them the first opportunity to say, did we miss something in the materials? Is there something here that simply because how we approached the trial, it was left undiscovered? So those are the two areas that as we think about how this process can move forward, we'll be formulating minority reports around process and then also around materials. Materials we can act on pretty quickly. We can learn if there's additional things we need to look at. To this particular math adoption, remember this is something that started quite some time ago, and I actually can't speak to the numbers and different groups of teachers that may have been involved at the start. That just kind of changes the story of how many different teachers were able to work with these materials because of how long ago it actually started. So I can't give you a specific answer to that question.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I'm confused because I thought you said there were 21 teachers who piloted this. So it was exactly 21 teachers who piloted it, right?
Currently, yes. Currently working with these materials, yes. This is an adoption cycle that goes back in time, longer than one typically would. And what I don't know is how many other teachers and perhaps different teachers may have been involved with that when it started back at that time.
Okay, and then, so my follow-up question is, of the teachers who participated, what percentage of them participated in the evaluation?
I would have to check the memo for that. Oops. From last week's board meeting. I would have to reference the memo for that. And let me see, maybe, let me check with Cindy. Cindy, do you have that?
So is it, are you talking about from when we first began looking at resources or just this specific trial?
I assumed I'm talking about this specific trial. In other words, teachers piloted this material and then the decision is being made to adopt this material. So I'm just wondering, of the teachers who piloted it, did they all have an opportunity to evaluate it?
The survey, the Google form went out to all who piloted it. So if they chose to fill it out, yes. Yes.
And it was a 60% response rate to that survey.
Turn on your thing.
60%. All 21 answered how many? That's the ones, okay, with that way, it's not how many liked it, but out of the 60% then, they all liked it?
Turn on your mic.
So the questions that were asked were, it wasn't necessarily an endorse or not endorse. That question wasn't asked.
It was like the notes, how much note taking do you take? Those kind of questions that were in the thing, right? Okay, all right.
Anybody else? Andrew?
I'm gonna vote yes on this because I think we did have a presentation that indicated a cross section of support, but Nancy's concerns are very valid, and we talked about this last week as well. And when there's a culture of whoever's voices aren't being heard, and there's a lot of groups you can put into there, and we've heard it since I was on the board, and I don't mean since I got back on the board, I mean since I first was on the board. And did my served my first term together with Mr. Doherty in 98. So, and there were some of the same things then. I believe that there is sincerity at the top of the organization about this now, about meaningful feedback, about work teams instead of committees. But when you have a survey, and I had in a different, completely different thing, but there's this concept overlap here. I had someone tell me that they didn't fill out a survey that the district was doing because both options on the survey endorsed the same outcome in one case. So I'm concerned if 21 teachers are going to the effort of choosing to pilot a curriculum, which is a big deal. It's extra work done early when a teacher could also choose to wait and take the curriculum in the adoption cycle with all the trainings provided and so forth. So a 40% non-answer rate is a little concerning, and it almost makes me wonder, and we'll never know for sure. Do I look at a survey? I don't have a way to say I don't endorse this, so I just don't do the survey. I don't know. And we're left we're left guessing. And I guess for me, in the end, this barely passes my test of am I 85% confident in it? If I'm not 85% confident in something, I vote no. But only just because that lingering doubt is in my mind too, if there are people who feel that they weren't heard and or were excluded, quite possibly before you were on board as part of this, maybe before you were even here. That's my take on it.
James.
So I think I was going to let this go, but I want to give you an opportunity to revise. During the presentation last week, I heard the presentation of facts differently. And if I read the sentence that you're referencing in the memo, I heard you say last week that when you started inquiring about the text, you sent questionnaires out and 60% of the teachers, population of teachers, responded. 30% of the teachers, total population of teachers, reviewed materials. And then 21 teachers actually participated in the trial. I think it was erroneous when you said tonight that the 60% represented 60% of the 21 responded to a survey. It's 60% of the entire population. When they're saying, here's some text options, they got 60%. So Andrew, I just had to say that because I think you were acting on, you're acting on some data that I think was misrepresented tonight.
That is accurate. If you picture it like a funnel,
funnel,
that's exactly, yep, that's accurate. And apologies for misrepresenting.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I didn't want people to leave this thinking that the number of people responding was so small that Andrew would then have an extraordinary concern, right? So, and having said that, I do think, and I said this last time, the board has an opportunity to act to create some concise instructions to teaching and learning through policy of the nature of the presentation to the board so that we get more of our questions in the presentation so they don't have to keep running back and getting more information, because right now the policy is silent on what they should come and tell us to encourage us to vote yes or no. So even in this evening's packet, there are different levels of detail per curriculum. And I don't think that is doing anyone any favors, because we're asking you questions that you are not prepared necessarily to answer because you didn't prep for them in your presentation. So I do think that we have an opportunity to do better next time as a board, giving you some instructions of what we need to hear from you when we want to adopt curriculum.
Okay, I think we should probably move on because we're talking about something other than the motion. We're talking about something else kind of at this point. It's related, but it's not the motion on the floor. Go ahead, Lynn.
I do think this is related. I have a two-part question, if I may. So help me out. The 21 teachers who piloted the math program, did they all get to weigh in on how they felt as teachers about how it went and whether they think we ought to adopt this? Okay, but this isn't where we say 60-40. It wasn't them. Okay. I just asked Nancy a question to clarify what she said about, was that the teacher you were talking about that you heard from, was that one of the teachers who piloted the program?
I don't know for sure, but it sounds like it because he told me all the things that he didn't like about it. So maybe I never asked him. But I mean, he talks, the main thing about the program itself is he didn't like the workbook. And that there was, because of the amount of room to write on and the order of the content, the concepts, he thought there'd have to be so much changing around. But he's leaving, so, but he was just very upset about, about the whole thing. So,
Go ahead, Viva.
I know in the attached document, it has the responses from the student survey, are we able to see the responses from the teacher survey that was sent out? Okay.
All right. Anybody else? All right, we're going to vote now. Everybody ready? Okay, Kinsey.
Online voting is now open. It's not working. How about now?
I don't have it yet. Anybody? Oh, there it is. Okay.
All votes have been entered and the motion is carried. The results of the individual board member votes are as follows. Becker, yes. McCoy, yes. Welch, no. Lyerly, yes. Mills, yes. Gerlach, yes.
Okay. Yep, we're moving on to, next is, elementary social studies resource adoption.
I move that the essential documents and resources for elementary social studies as presented be approved.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
I think this is going to be great. We've been not having a lot of social studies in elementary because we've been so much into the little groups and things for literacy that we've been lacking in knowledge base. And this is going to help a lot.
Anybody else? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay, D, multilingual learner resource adoption. Someone read the motion, please.
I move that the course essential documents and resources for multilingual learners as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion. Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Next is E. Would someone read the motion, please?
I move that the course essential documents and resources for grades K through 8 English language arts as presented be approved.
Second.
Questions? Nancy?
I am going to vote yes for this because it's going to be better. I'm not sure if it's the best one, but I'm going to just read this one little thing. And it's from a company, not a company, but a resource that looks at materials. It says today's basals are designed to excel in curriculum adoption processes, not classrooms. They are stuffed with enough manuals, materials, tech gizmos, and bells and whistles to check all the boxes at the surface level, which may also explain how some pulled off all green ratings from ed reports. The publishers even claim this is a virtue and market themselves as programs that will meet the needs of all students through a variety of different activities and or materials. Lost in the conversation, the high share of materials with low instructional relevance.
Anybody else? All right, Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. The next is F. Would someone read the motion, please?
I move that the contract renewal with Green Bay Area Charter Schools, Inc. for Northeast Wisconsin School of Innovations be effective July 1, 2024 to June 30th, 2029, as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion. Go ahead.
I enjoyed the presentation that was made. I appreciate the fact that sandbox approach with the charter schools, bringing back some positive gains that we can utilize in our, I think you said comprehensive high schools was the phrasing for it. And, you know, that's one of the good things about a public school chartered instrumentality, chartered school with it. And, you know, there's going to be some bumps in the road, but I think we're getting some positive gains out of it.
As opposed to what other kind of school?
I'll just leave it at that. So.
Okay. No, I thought I'd give you the opportunity to just to explain the difference for people who might be watching.
If they're watching this late, they know.
Okay. Right. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it.
Go ahead.
We've had a wonderful experience with district instrumentality charters with JDL and with Northeast Wisconsin School of Innovation. And this is a situation where a school can have more flexibility in their arrangement, but the granting authority is us. And that is a very different situation from other types of charters that people may have heard of that are corporate, for-profit corporate entities that take public money and no accountability. So these have, the negotiations with us have resulted in programs that are beneficial to students and have the flexibility they need, but largely are following almost all of our same procedures.
Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
All right, you pulled me in. Instrumentality charter schools do a fantastic job of exploring and using this. And I think that there's opportunities for us to expand as an instrumentality, you know, issuing charters as an instrumentality. We've seen other schools in the area. Appleton has a robust charter program within their district. And I think that it's something that we could continue to look at.
Okay. All right, Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. The next one is G. Would someone like to, well, there's no motion. I think, Mike, are you ready to come up and answer any questions? Does anyone have any questions? But we have to kind of make a choice here. Yes, sir.
I think before we discuss it, we have to have a motion, and I have to abstain from all
All
of
right.
this, so
Let's
we
do
can't
that.
discuss unless we know what it is, so.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I move that the district or the Board of Education approve a change to the IPP program moving to short-term disability.
Second.
Okay. Do we, go ahead, Andrew.
So looking this over, I'm opposed to the change. I think we have a situation where there is a modest savings in a case of a benefit becoming much less generous. And I know I asked I asked about the actuarial value of it, that perhaps perhaps as things sit right now, we were quite lucky to not see a major difference between the two, but all I can go by is the reality that what we're proposed right now is a very modest savings for something that is a benefit of much less value. So I certainly would be open to it if I'm wrong and this benefit becomes super expensive this year and next year we're having the same question with a bigger difference. If I'm still on the board, then my answer might be different, but it is a significant change in value to the member. And I prioritize not making changes that leave people worse off, and I think there would be some amount of loss of value. I don't know how much, but there would be some if we change this, and I just doesn't rise to the threshold for me of making the change.
Anybody else? Go ahead, James.
I made the motion because we needed a motion. I agree with you, Andrew. Because facing a recruiting environment that we are facing now, that as I look at this benefit and compare it to other changes that we've made, I know that we had a consultant come here and present data that may have communicated that we've been lucky over the last couple of years, but I'd rather risk being unlucky a year before taking this kind of this benefit away. The differences between the two programs are pretty significant from a benefit. So having it presented without evidence that we were being harmed as a district, I just am not inclined to make a change.
Anybody else? Lynn?
Because I have no expertise in this area whatsoever, I would like to ask, is there anyone on the staff present or on the board who could speak in favor of it so I can hear that side of it? I know we had a presentation last time, but now we're down to the wire and we have to make a decision. Is there someone who would argue for adopting it?
Please.
I would say that anything over $100,000 would benefit us in addressing the budget gap we have. The other plus to moving to this is staff that need to have elective surgeries, for example. If they moved it to the summertime, there's an advantage under this plan because they would actually, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but they would be paid, even though it's 80%, 82% of their salary, they would actually be paid during the summer. So that's an advantage for our staff, which means they're in the classroom or otherwise doing work during the school year, which is what we desperately need.
Anybody else? I know that that our GBA was very much against this for quite a while, and there's been some shifting in their thinking on this. They understand the benefits of both. So it's rare that we have to make a decision like this, right? That it's so hard to really judge, being that both bring benefits and some negatives as well. So go ahead, James.
So what's the ramifications if we do not make a decision at this? Do we have a deadline to do this? Because I understand where you're coming from. I'd love to know if there's any data to support that we have populations of teachers electively making that choice out there. So I would like more information about that, because it's not 82%. That's what the current IPP is. We'll be moving to 60%. And that is a significant change. I recognize that it is over the summer, and I don't exactly know how that works against a 10-month contract versus a 12-month contract, but you make a point. I just like more information if we have time.
We don't. That's right. I mean, your option is to do nothing and we remain the same for the next school year. Wouldn't even have to be voted on. That would just be, you would move on to the next item. We need to get our benefit information out. I think the deadline is very soon for the next school year. So that puts us on a bit of a timeline.
So we will be taking a vote. Is there any other questions? Any discussion? Kinsey? Could you read it again, please?
So the motion on the table is to make a change to the IPP program, moving to short-term disability.
Okay, Kinsey, I think we're ready.
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion did not carry. The results of the individual board member votes are as follows. Becker, no. McCoy, yes. Welch, no. Lyerly, no. Mills abstained. And Gerlach, no.
Okay. We're going to now move on to H. Could someone read the motion, please? Go ahead. Jim.
No.
Go ahead.
I move that commencing with the 2025-26 school year, the health insurance premium discount shall be applied to employers enrolled in the health insurance plan who obtain a wellness visit with the employee's provider during a defined window of time and subsequently thereafter as presented be approved.
Second.
Okay. Questions, James?
Yeah, I did not think to ask the consultant or Mike, maybe you can speak on this. Defined period of time and wellness visits and providers all make me concerned what happens if you're not able to actually get an appointment with your provider because they're running on 3 months, 6 month wait lists for appointments during that period of time. Is there a impact to the employee if they're not able to secure that visit?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the question. I can tell you that there will need to be a defined period for new employees always, in order to have our plan to meet our plan documents and stay within the plan there. So for new employees, there's always that communication. We work with people in a variety of communication modalities to make sure they get signed up and navigate that. And then, yes, there would be, it's the entire plan year essentially. So it's going to essentially be up until when open enrollment starts for the next year. So even if there's a 3 or 6 month waiting period, I think it's really based on the communication is going to be really, kind of paramount.
I appreciate that. I thought there was like an open enrollment window or something short. So you're saying that if you have a visit anytime during the previous year, you get the benefit on that next annual enrollment.
That's correct. Yes.
Can I follow? Yes. So I don't know if you have this information. Wellness visit, right, with a doctor is not necessarily the same thing as a full physical, right? Because there are certain constraints on what is reimbursed as part of the ACA. So do you know what the tangible differences are between what we use as a health risk assessment and a wellness visit?
Well, I think that in short, a health risk assessment is a predetermined set of, blood work, height, weight. They don't check out how you can jump or anything, but they have this set list, right? That applies to everybody. Doesn't matter which one of you walks in, you all get the same thing, which may not be relevant to what you actually need. And so when you schedule that wellness visit with your your physical with your primary care physician, it will be customized to address what may be unique to your circumstances, and then can also result in age-based or gender-based or needs-based screenings that are, for your age bracket, right? When I go in for my HRA, they're not doing a colorectal screening, right? But when I go in for my physical, if I've hit that age range, that's part of it, right? So that's the big piece around preventative health and catching things early, right? It saves lives and cost plans less. So
Andrew, then Nancy. Go ahead, Andrew.
So if your provider thought it was helpful, they could test how high you could jump, but probably almost no employees under the old or new system would be tested how high they could jump.
that is correct, yes.
Nancy.
Is there any way that people can choose to do either one or the other, or it's going to just totally go one way?
It is technically possible to have both options available, but it's not our recommendation that we do that for logistical processing or guidance reasons from our consultants. That's not the typical standard way that we address this. We want to support folks in the more meaningful experience.
So why did we go to the other thing in the first place?
I can tell you that the answer to that likely lies in board minutes and documents from when insurance decisions were made back in the early 2010s. The most recent information that I have is from a board meeting in 2016, where the board reaffirmed the commitment to a PHA at that time as a mechanism for providing an additional discount to member premiums. I believe some of that may be tied potentially politically from back in 2010 as well.
Andrew.
If I recall correctly, and I hope I voted no on it in 2016, and I think this might have been this might have snuck in there in those 2 years that I accidentally didn't run for the board again. This was a health assessment is a good thing to do. It's good to do. The way that it's presented and the penalty, and essentially the fact that it was a backdoor through Act 10 that allowed us to get around a contract that we negotiated for a generation with the unions, that it was 12% was the employee contribution, which was paid for over and over again by years of negotiating lower wages to keep the benefit the same. And then this was just a backdoor to have some people have to pay 17 instead of 12. The reason I'm able to vote yes here is because although I don't like the financial penalty aspect of it, it is much better. I did have one other thing. I just wanted to make sure there's not any, if someone's not able to get the wellness visit until late in the year, are they paying more and having to get reimbursed, or is there get it caught up later, or is there a presumption of you're going to get it, or does my question make sense?
The reason why we're asking for your support this evening is because then it would give us that whole plan year to get ready for it to take effect in 25, 26. So it's always going to be like, people will, if you vote yes tonight, we'll have this entire year to get ready for it to be applied for the 25, 26 year. We are currently administering the health risk assessments, personal health assessments right now for the 24, 25 plan year that you'll be voting on the rates for. So we had to put this like a year in advance so that we didn't put people in that pickle that you're describing, Andrew.
Brian.
I plan on abstaining on all of these votes because, well, my family, we don't participate in the health insurance part. I'm going to ask one question. I plan on abstaining on all of these. The wellness checks, can those also be done at quick care clinics and other settings rather than just an appointment with your doctor?
My understanding is that it is not intended to be done at a quick care environment. We will verify all of the options available for all of our employees, though, to make sure that that information is, that people are well aware of this. We would not be recommending this if we thought access would be a significant barrier, but I appreciate that question.
Anybody else? Okay, Kinsey, I think we're ready to vote.
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried. The results of the individual board member votes are as follows. Gerlach, yes. Mills abstained. Lyerly, yes. Welch, yes. McCoy, yes. Becker, yes.
Okay. All right, we're moving on to I. Could someone please read the? Oh, okay.
Chair, I have an alternate proposal. I move that we consolidate agenda items I through N.
Second.
Andrew?
But before we do that, I just wanted to check if Brian was abstaining on the retiree ones as well. Otherwise, I'd rather let Brian vote on the most possible items.
I'm fine with it being bundled. I mean,
I have no objection if he does.
Okay. James,
Oh, so we have to vote on that, sorry.
all right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Go ahead, James.
I move that benefit changes represented by items I through N as presented be approved.
Second.
Questions? Discussion? Kinsey?
I'm going to do a voice vote.
Okay.
Lyerly,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Welch,
Aye.
Mills,
abstain.
Gerlach,
Aye.
McCoy.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. James?
I move that we consolidate agenda items O through V.
Second.
Oh, separately. P.
Sorry. I withdraw my motion.
Okay. We're gonna move on to O then. Can someone read the motion, please?
I move that that a 4.5% base wage increase for educators be applied to the educator's salary schedule commencing July 1st, 2024 for the 2024-25 fiscal year as presented be approved.
Lynn, I think you got the number wrong there. Can you try that again?
I'm on O. Well, I don't have my glasses on.
Yeah.
Okay. I move that a 4.12% base wage increase. What did I say the first time?
4.5.
Oh, 4.12%
Students
base
were like,
wage
"Yes."
increase for educators be applied to the educator's salary schedule commencing July 1st, 2024 for the 2024-25 fiscal year as presented, be approved.
Second.
Yeah, really. Yeah, there was, yeah, there's no getting around the state requirements on that, so. All right, who seconded?
I did.
Okay. All right, discussion, questions. I'm just gonna make a observation that I'm proud that our district is offering the maximum amount allowable by law to our staff. They deserve it. All right, I think we're ready to take that vote. Kinsey.
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion has carried. The results of the individual board member votes are as follows. Becker, yes. McCoy, yes. Welch, yes. Lyerly, yes. Mills abstained. Gerlach, yes.
Okay. Go ahead now, James.
I move that we consolidate agenda items P through V.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Brian.
Just want to make an editorial comment on this where every year we go through this with it saying salary increase. Once again, this is a cost of living adjustment due to legislation that was passed. I'm sure all of the employees appreciate it, and I appreciate being able to vote for this, especially where we look at cells and ability in that area. But once again, this is a cost of living adjustment, not a salary increase.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, we're ready to go, Kinsey. Go ahead, James.
I move that the cost of living increases represented by items P through V as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion? Kinsey.
McCoy,
Aye.
Gerlach,
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
Welch,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Lyerly.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Yep. There we go. All right, could someone please read the motion?
I move that a 4.12% base wage increase for administrators be applied to the administrator's salary schedule commencing July 1st, 2024 for the 2024-25 fiscal year as presented be approved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay, next X. So there is no recommended motion for this, and we kind of left it kind of up in the air when we talked about it last week, because I think not everyone was in the same place on this, and I don't know if over the last week, if you've had time to think about this and what you would like to do as a board with regard to doing a cost of living increase. What's that? Oh, before we discuss, okay, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
I move that a 4.12% cost of living adjustment for the Board of Education be applied starting July 1st, 2024.
Second.
Okay, everything I just said, and I don't know, I don't really have anything to add to that. I would love to throw it out and have everyone chime in if they want to. So, Andrew.
So as luck would have it, that almost but doesn't quite get us to a nice clean number, but I don't feel the need to make an amendment. Had we gone to 7,500, it would have been 4.16, coupled with the fact that it was $0 last year. I will just point out that this So this would, the 4.12% would make the board member compensation for next year be 74.96. And if the board had continued with it, had done its practice of taking, or had used its option to take some of the cost of living increments, and did last year and this year at the same amount, it would be 8,100, and this is under 7,500. I think it's reasonable, and I think it's the right thing to do with a minimum of 2 and potentially 3 new board members coming in, is to say, yes, we will keep it. Your board member compensation next year will theoretically be the exact same value that this year's was. Seems fair to me.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, Kitsy?
Lyerly,
No.
Becker,
Aye.
Welch,
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
Gerlach,
Aye.
McCoy.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Next is Y. With regard to contracts, would someone like to please read the motion? Go ahead.
I move that the issuance of contracts as outlined under Wisconsin statute, section 118.22 for the 2024-25 school year as presented be approved.
Second.
Questions, discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried. The results of the individual board member votes are as follows. Becker, yes. McCoy, yes. Welch, yes. Lyerly, yes. Mills abstained. Gerlach, yes.
Thank you. All right, we're moving into a whole bunch of job descriptions. So go ahead, James.
I move that we consolidate agenda items Z through LL.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Go ahead, make the motion.
I move that job description updates represented by items Z through LL as presented be approved.
Second.
Okay, Andrew.
I was gonna try to jump the gun and just do it through double J, but I'm okay with it. I just want to, I guess I am going to point out, but I'm also going to re-clarify because I want to make sure that I'm not making a mistake when I vote for this. I am very happy to see the Director of Engagement and Inclusion and the Director of Recruitment and Talent Development. I think we have excellent people in those positions, and they're important things for us to do with recruitment and retention of teachers. My yes vote on the 2 positions, which are new administrative positions coming onto the org chart. We had discussion last week about positions coming off the org chart, but there's no vote this week to strike positions off the org chart. So where does that leave us, and where is my assurance that I am not? And it's not about who's in a position, it's about I've made a commitment to not add net positions to the org chart. So does this add net positions to the org chart until something else happens?
I think your safeguard might be that we would not bring a proposal for a person to take one of those positions until we're able to show you, Mr. Becker, that it would be neutral at the least.
Is there a plan to take the positions off the org chart that were discussed, and when might we be seeing that?
When I'll be honest with you, when I can find some time to put something together.
It could just be I mean, there could just simply be a motion next month to strike the positions from the org chart, right? I'm going to, I'm gonna vote yes because of the importance of the positions and the two people, but I'm gonna be clear that it's with the understanding that it was said by multiple top administrators last week that the position, the 3 executive director positions will come off the org chart, because I will not vote for a net increase in central office when we're telling people we have to close schools. I don't think we're doing that. I just don't want it to backdoor happen that my vote today accidentally somehow became increasing the central office positions because I'm not voting to do that.
All right, Brian.
The clarification, and I agree, Andrew, with your reasoning on that. And while we haven't had a presentation shown to us, I mean, there'll still be a board vote on that. I agree completely with your thought process on it, but that'll still have to come up to a board vote as well with it. So just, the approval that we would have on that, regardless of whether they present it or not, we still need to support it. I'm supporting the concept, Andrew.
Anybody else? All right, Kinsey?
McCoy,
Aye.
Gerlach,
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
Welch,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Lyerly.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Next is MM. Could someone please read the motion?
I move that the admin be authorized to enter into a contract with Nexus Solution for purposes of program management services as presented be approved.
Second.
Questions or discussion? We had a very good presentation last week about this, so. Okay, Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay. And could someone please read the motion?
I move that CDW Government LLC be awarded the bid for 2,485 Chromebooks, white glove service, and Chrome OS management license for the Green Bay Area Public School District in the amount of $1,343,347.50 as presented.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Discussion? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. Next, would someone please read the motion?
I move that Midwest Sports and Turf Systems be awarded the bid for artificial turf materials and installation at West Stadium in the amount of $441,144.69 as presented be approved.
Second.
Questions, discussion? Andrew?
I think we should just get a little bit more of an update. I think it's reasonable to have, I'm planning to vote yes. I'm sure the reason is solid, but, I would like to get just out on the record, why we're passing on a slightly lower bid, which sometimes we do if we're convinced that service will be better. I just wanted to get that a little bit more out at the meeting here.
So this was at the recommendation of the architect Rettler. Same recommendation was made on the Preble project actually, and it has to do with their confidence that the vendor can meet the tight timelines to get that field turned around by the fall competition season. They had some experiences in the past with the low bidder where the timeline slipped a little bit. So we felt more comfortable going with Midwest, given that it was just slightly higher and it was also still below our pre-bid estimates.
Anybody else? Okay. Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. All right, now we're moving into some policy votes. PP.
I move that the revisions to policy 363.3 webpage management as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion or questions? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay, we're moving on to QQ. James? All right.
Unless there's objection, I'd like to move that we consolidate agenda items QQ through UU.
I'd rather not yet.
Okay.
All right, we go on. QQ. Somebody read the motion, please.
I move that the revisions to Rule 363.3 district web page guidelines as presented be approved.
Second.
Discussion or questions? Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Okay. Next is RR. Would someone read the motion, please?
I move that the revisions to Rule 345.42 grade acceleration procedures as presented be approved.
Second.
Questions? Andrew?
I'd like to get just a little bit more clarification, especially around the comments of our speaker earlier. I just want to make sure we're not, I understand that current practice and most in the district would generally find in the current state of education is that grade acceleration, at least full grade acceleration, probably is something that's done rarely. If there's an educational reason to not grade accelerate someone, then I want us to be saying it upfront, tell the family that, and tell the family their appeal rights. I don't want to hear that people feel that they've been backdoored, that it took so long to get a meeting that now the decision's kind of too late for this year. I just want to make sure that what we're doing here, they're gonna get a, yes, we think we should do it. No, we don't support it and here's why, and here's your chain of appeals. And I just want to make sure that's where we're headed here. Because I don't like hearing, I don't like it not happening by default, which I think maybe happened to somebody.
Lynn,
If I'm reading this correctly, the only changes that are being made are to name the director of curriculum, the go-to person instead of the executive director of teaching and learning, except for one change at the end, which says, where the family's request for acceleration has been denied, the parent or guardian shall be permitted to apply for acceleration 1 school year from the date of denial, as opposed to 12 months. I don't see any other changes. Am I missing something, please?
so the policy or the changes you're referring to are the changes that we made since the work session. There were other additional changes in the document that we provided to you. And really, the changes are exactly what you're pointing out, Andrew. Clarity in the process, what's required, a timeline, so that families know how long the process will take, when they're expected to hear back, when the decision is, and then the appeal process, and then when families could have their students tested again. And that applies to whole grade level acceleration as well as subject matter acceleration. Okay. Andrew?
So does that mean the next, if they did it at some point in this school year, they can apply once the next school year?
That's correct.
Do you know why I'm asking?
Yeah, so if you were tested in December and you don't meet the criteria, you can apply again at the start of the next school year.
Right, so I'm asking because if we cross out 12 months and we say 1 school year, not that anyone at this table would do it, but I would be really disappointed if I was happily retired from the board and was flipping through YouTube one night and someone said, that was supposed to be next school year, but you said I had to wait till the first, you did it at the midpoint of last school year, so now you still have to wait till January. And I don't like anyone at this table will do it. It's the point of writing policy for worst case scenarios, not best case scenarios of who's here. I don't think it rises to the level that I have to amend it, but I just wanted to make sure that that was stated.
That's why we took out 12 months, and it just says the following school year.
Well, it says
One school year.
So that could be
Can I move to amend the motion to correct the policy section F, the new number 3, to strike the word 1 and replace it with the word next? The next, sorry.
second.
No, I'm sorry. So do we have to, do we have to vote on this amendment? So, a voice vote? All right, discussion. Any discussion? Okay. Voice vote? All right. All right, so with regard to the amendment, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. So that changes now, part of the motion. Go ahead.
Would you entertain a motion to open the floor and allow someone from the public to speak?
Is that a motion?
Yeah, yes, so moved.
Second.
I'm not sure if this is new territory, so, are we to do a voice vote on this? Go ahead.
I'm concerned for it, not for squelching democracy or the right for people to speak on it, but in the past, we've I've brought up topics within Robert's rules and whether we as a body follow Robert's rules or if we kind of adjust it. And I think that this would be an interpretation of Robert's rules, which we haven't done before. So I'm going to vote against it.
Go ahead, Lynn.
I remember some months ago when it was explained to me that we as a board could not respond to anything that the public says in public forum unless it's on the agenda. So I see this as a, just kind of the opposite. This is an opportunity if there's someone who is present and can shed some light from a parent's point of view. I'm willing to listen.
Andrew.
This is a motion that I've been waiting many years to be a part of. I think there is merit to the way I think there's merit to having a broad open forum at the beginning, and I would never change that, but I also think there's merit for what is the city council calls a motion to suspend the rules to allow interested parties to address the board when someone has something pertinent on an agenda item. It is a way to increase it's a way to increase public input when it makes sense, and I think it makes sense here. So I'm gonna vote yes.
James.
I agree with you, Andrew. I think you're right in that it's probably been years. And one of the reasons I believe is precedent setting. And if we take this vote to open the floor, I do not know that we have a framework in place to turn that off. And that is a situation where it is, to Brian's point, a fun change to how we conduct business and the timeliness of conducting business, because I would like more information on how we would restrict the number of people that we would open the floor to, because I've seen the city council meetings and it goes. And so I know that this is an isolated situation, but it fundamentally changes how we conduct a meeting. It may be for the better, but I'd rather take an informed decision and make that a part of our working agreements versus in the face of an individual person who wants to speak on a topic.
Brian.
I think we have one of the most open forums. We allow anyone that would like to come and speak at our open forums. Other districts require you to be a district resident. We let you speak for 5 minutes. I learned other districts do 3 minutes or 2 minutes. I appreciate the volunteering of information from the person, but if we do this, then we do not, how do we select who does and doesn't speak? Where the open forums, we have a policy set, we have a strict policy, we don't respond because it's not a posted item. Just, we open up a box that is very risky, especially because if we decide that someone isn't an expert on an area or doesn't have an opportunity to share on it, how do we justify that? People are able to communicate with us. If someone wanted to email the school board, they'd be able to do that and we get that right away. There's other opportunities for people to speak, but taking that opportunity, I think, is not necessarily appropriate here because we don't have the guidelines on how we monitor it.
Okay, so then, Andrew.
I mean, I think the guideline is that just the city sometimes votes yes to hear more speakers, and sometimes the city votes no to not hear more speakers. If this passes or fails, I'm certainly interested in exploring a suspension of the rules procedure to allow for this, because I think, like I said, yeah, we have the most open forum of just about any group of government, but unlike some other units, we're completely closed to this. So if this passes or fails, I'd like to see something happen for this by soon.
Also, we're not fully, we don't have a full board at the moment. And this is a precedent setting kind of thing and not to be taken lightly because it will change how we do business quite fundamentally. James, or Brian, sorry.
Happens. I appreciate the statement without whether we have a full board or not. I don't think that's relevant to it. I think we need to investigate it more so for a policy part and more comparison as to what other groups do. I wouldn't necessarily want to just go off the city council. They do great work, but they may have different guidelines as far as Robert's rules and other policies on there that we haven't investigated. And Andrew, I'd be happy to work with you on investigating where we could do that and some guidelines for it.
Okay. Lynn,
I'm not going to argue the point, but I just want to point out that it can only be done if a member of the board makes a motion to suspend the rules and open the floor. This is the first time anyone's done it. So the chances that you are all going to jump on the bandwagon and start doing this at every meeting from now on is probably slim.
Brian.
That may have been the policy of other organizations, but once again, we've never defined all of Robert's rules exactly. We don't have the rules set up to even address the rule with that. And I appreciate what you're saying with other organizations having done it, but I don't see anywhere in our policy where we'd even be allowed to do it at this point.
Okay, I think it's not really appropriate to be changing how we do business over a vote like this. So, but the further a larger discussion clearly is warranted. So let's, what's the motion right now?
To suspend the rules.
Yeah, okay, so, is that a voice? That must be a voice vote. Okay, go ahead, Kinsey.
McCoy,
No.
Gerlach,
Aye.
Mills,
No.
Welch,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Lyerly.
No.
We have a tie. Okay, motion.
Okay. That's why it's important to have 7 as opposed to 6. Go ahead.
Again, that would be an issue if we're following Robert's rules, whether we have 2/3 versus a simple majority.
I see.
So
Okay. All right, so let's return to the original motion, which has been read and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
So just to clarify, you did agree to amend?
Yes.
So the motion will be as amended be approved, not as presented be approved.
I'm sorry, yes, as amended. We're ready to vote. Sorry, I'm just kind of making sure everyone has their needs met here. Go ahead, Kinsey.
Lyerly,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Welch,
Aye.
Mills,
aye.
Gerlach,
Aye.
McCoy,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay. Next is SS. Would someone read the motion, please?
I was actually gonna move that items SS through UU be combined.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. So make that motion. No, you made. no.
I'll move, I will move the policy revisions detailed in agenda items SS through UU.
Second.
Okay. Kinsey? Oh, sorry, discussion, questions? Kinsey?
McCoy,
Aye.
Gerlach,
Aye.
Mills,
Aye.
Welch,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Lyerly,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, that completes our voting, except, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I do have one thing that admittedly loosely touches on board meeting schedule, but I did want to acknowledge that although it might not seem like it because of how much is on the schedule yet, that it is Nancy Welch's last official voting monthly primary business meeting of the board,
Oh.
although you have at least 3 more left anyways. For third, 15th, 8th. 3rd, 8th, and 15th.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, all right. I'm sorry that kind of, I wasn't really paying attention. I felt like you had like another whole month basically, but, all right.
Well, actually, almost.
Yeah.
Almost. If we have,
Yeah.
if we call a meeting on the 21st, it's still Nancy.
All right. All right, we're, all in favor? Aye, opposed?
I
What?
move that we adjourn.
I already did that.
Mm,
Yeah.
You can entertain.
Did
Can I second?
someone second it? All right, all in favor? Aye, opposed? All right, we're adjourned.
You have been watching the Green Bay Area Public School District's Board of Education meeting. Please visit the school district's website, www.gbaps.org, for more information on the district and future meeting dates. If you cannot fully access the information on this video, please let us know the accessibility issue you are having by calling 920-448-2025 or by email at communications@gbaps.org. We will try to provide the information to you in an alternative format and/or make the necessary improvements to make the information accessible.